Let's get ready to riot!
Adam Taxon here with more coverage of the feral mob violence in Missouri that you're certainly not going to obtain from the so-called mainstream media. We are sort of in catch-up mode now as we have a lot to process. It seems to be slowing down now, but so much has gone on over the last 85 hours or so, you may not have processed a lot of it. And, you know, we had Thanksgiving too, so your attention was probably away from this. It is important to be aware of what happened and have it imprinted in your memory because it won't be long before the Democrats try to send a massive bill to taxpayer America for what the Obama base has been doing. I've mentioned to you before Ken Giveded, aka Daily Ken, that's with two N's, as in dailyken.com. I've mentioned him before, and I'm sure I will do so plenty more times because he's doing some noble, often thankless, and risky work, and I really admire him for it. His work, especially given what Eric Holder preached to us, you heard the opening clip, his work is especially great when it comes to covering racially sensitive matters in an honest, objective way, which big media certainly does not do, even though it should be doing it that way. But Daily Ken just put out an excellent story, the details of which you really need to know in light of the incredibly disproportionate amount of attention that the supposed victimization of the lowlife cretin Michael Brown has been receiving. The article title at dailyken.com is Peaceful Protesters Torch Michael Brown's Dad's Church. And here's what it says. This is with full permission of Daily Ken, who is a friend. The church where Michael Brown's father was baptized was set afire Monday night. It was one of a dozen or more buildings burned by peaceful protesters annoyed that justice prevailed after Officer Darren Wilson shot gentle giant Michael Brown to death in August. The church's minister pointed his finger at white supremacists, supposing they were outraged that the church serviced a member of Brown's family, and confirming both Ken's laws number 1 and number 3. I'll put up the link to that. You should Google Ken's laws with two N's and at dailyken.com, but I think there should be a link up there. Ken's law number 1, by the way, is liberals will reduce every conversation to an accusation of white racism. Ken's law number 3 is every major news story will be accompanied by at least one major conspiracy theory. Ken Givedin goes on to say, there is no indication that any of Brown's family actually attended Flood Church, and it occurred to no one that, had little Michael been raised in the church, it would not have been burned. That takes a few steps to get to that, but it's a good point. Also this, from the New York Daily News, in an article subtitle, well, the article title doesn't matter, but the subtitle does, and that is, Reverend Carlton Lee said white supremacists set fire to the Flood Christian Church late Monday as payback for his public cries for police officer Darren Wilson's arrest. Insurance scam. Also from there, Lee was an ever-present fixture next to Michael Brown Sr. in the months after his son, Michael Brown Jr., was killed in a violent confrontation with Wilson on August 9th. The elder Brown was even baptized at the church on Sunday. Insurance scam. I'm very vocal in regards to the Michael Brown case, Lee told NBC News, but Lee pointed to the distance between his church and the bulk of the violence, calling the burning of his church a targeted crime. Insurance scam. Adam adding something else here. Hey, Reverend Lee, white supremacists? Seriously? Just like those supposed burnings of black churches by white supremacists when Bill Clinton was president and was getting quite a bit of mileage out of, pretty much all of which turned out to be inside jobs. Because we know that so many white supremacists wanted nothing more but to bond with the Michael Brownshirts this week. Where's your evidence, Reverend? And if you're into wild speculation, are you even going to bother to consider a possible connection to all the Muslim instigators that have been hovering around Ferguson for months? Following any of the news, Reverend, about what's been happening lately to churches in Iraq, Syria, and throughout the Middle East? I figure not, Reverend. Back to the Daily News article. If Lee's setback feels like revenge, then his fellow merchants express a mix of abandonment and betrayal. It's a tragedy. I fault the governor. Adam has to interject here. The Democrat governor, Jay Nixon, the Daily News leaves that important information out, for not giving us the proper protection that we should have had, Brian Fletcher, chairman of the I Love Ferguson Committee, told KSDK. The quote goes on, He promised that at a news conference last week that he'd protect, again referring to Missouri's Democrat governor, the businesses of Ferguson. He threw us under the bus and ignored us, quite frankly. And that's the end of what I'm going to quote from that article. Anyhow, I know, facts are racist. But do stay tuned here, and to do so, subscribe to the Ataxin channel on YouTube, ATAXIN, where you are right now. Hit subscribe for breaking developments related to the mob of what I call Michael Brownshirts. This has been Adam Taxon.